the recipient of the Woven Basket this month, and I remember listening to her last year, and I learned a lot. So I'm really glad you're back. She says she's going to give us a lot of updates on what's happened since then on the NAMI Peer Support Program. And you'll have to help me here. Is it National Alliance of Men on Mental Illness?
Yeah.
Okay, National Alliance on Mental Illness. And so she will give us updates on things and take questions. And so let's get her started with a little applause.
Thank you, everyone. So let me know if at any point you can't hear me or something, or because sometimes I ramble. And okay, so I'm Chrissy Barnard. I'm going to talk about a little bit what peer support is. I did not cover this last year. So peer support specialists, they're both in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and it's a person with lived experience in mental health and or substance use, and they go through a 40+ hour training, and they demonstrate that recovery is possible, and they learn how to teach coping skills and things like that, and lead by example and walk along that beside that person on their recovery journey. So let's see, a little bit of principles of peer support. It's sharing your own story to connect to that person and give them hope. It's recognizing that there's many pathways to recovery, and it's self-determined and self-defined what recovery is for that person. Recovery looks different for each person. Some people just taking their meds every day and getting out of bed every day is a success to them. Some people it's getting a job and working full time and things like that is success to them. So it depends on each person's definition of their own recovery. And then it's understanding that how trauma plays an important role in their life. And then it's also being person-centered, realizing it's not one size fits all and looking at it from each person's strengths. I think that's in the next section though, the strengths. And it's coming from a place of curiosity. It's seeking that support and realizing that each person's an expert in their own life and their own experiences. And then recognizing their strengths as their assets, rather than looking at their mental illness as a defect and using it as a learning strategy, and like not thinking as a mental health crisis as a bad thing, but as a learning opportunity. And then self-determination, so they get to decide for themselves what works best for them. Person-centered is centering on their goals and wishes, and then we support that person in that. Honoring them first and foremost, realizing it's not a one size fits all, and then practicing cultural humility and responsiveness. And then respecting how people make their own meaning and experiences, and using language that is preferred by the person you're supporting. Because some people using first person language, like you would not say they're schizophrenic, you'd say they live with schizophrenia, something like that. And then finding the crisis and turning it into what they determine for themselves as an appropriate response, and being inclusive and accessible. So what peer supporters do is we attend appointments with them. That's a big thing I do. I go to medical appointments, I go to behavioral health appointments, and then we advocate with those providers. Sometimes they have a difficulty remembering things or remembering to ask questions, which a lot of us have that problem when we go to medical appointments. And then leading with healthy coping skills, like role modeling those behaviors of what a good coping skill is, like teaching breathing techniques, things like that. I do a lot of completing paperwork with people Because paperwork can be very confusing for like housing and unemployment or social security. I do a lot of that, making phone calls with people. And then assisting in, social services agencies like St. Vincent de Paul or the Salvation Army, or taking them to the local food shelves, things like that. I do a lot of that sort of stuff. In one of my other jobs, I work as a peer specialist. So, it's really strengthening those social skills for the person and helping them find support groups. That's another thing we do, and go with them to those support groups. Because a lot of times anxiety prohibits them from wanting to go by themselves. And then, educating them about their diagnoses. And then, assisting them with barriers to housing, employment, and education. That's where the paperwork usually comes into play. And then just listening to their concerns, because that's a big barrier is, they have concerns and they have frustrations every day. And then, working on a RAP plan, which is a wellness recovery action plan, which is pretty lengthy. And that but it's a very useful tool. And you can put in there things like, what's your warning signs for when you're not doing well, and when you are doing well, what does that look like, and things like that. So, we do a lot of RAP planning. But peer support is voluntary. And then the person has to want to better themselves, be able to meet at least bi-weekly, and that's Wisconsin's thing. And then is in need of additional services. So that's an overview of what peer support is, and Hope Haven provides peer support through the Peer Respite. And that's what we ended up deciding to call our Peer Respite in Superior. Last year, I don't know if we had a name or not yet when I was here. I think we just called it the Peer Respite. So now we have a name, and it's called Hope Haven, and this is our logo from St. Cloud University in Minnesota. They designed it for us, the students there. This is our current board of directors. We have a bunch of Ashland folks and Bayfield County folks, so that's a good thing. We want to balance out our board more. For those who weren't here last year and don't know, NAMI is a 3-tier organization and is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. They're in 49 states, but I don't know which one they're not in. And I get asked that question a lot. And then, we started as NAMI Douglas County and had our first kickoff meeting in 2014 as a steering committee. And then we had our official incorporation and started off with programs in 2015. And then we changed our name to NAMI Lake Superior South Shore when we expanded Bayfield and Ashland counties. And then, because we were already providing services there, we just didn't make it official until last year, or 2022. We provide education, support, and advocacy. But anyone's welcome to come. So we have a lot of members in Duluth. So, because during COVID, Duluth kind of like didn't provide support groups and stuff. So, we got a lot of influx of people that way. So anyone's welcome to come. And then we had Zoom as well. So we got a lot of people over Zoom because we did in-person and Zoom at the same time. Some of our programs are mental health chat, which we have in all the Superior elementary schools. It's, we target it to 4th graders, and it's a 40-minute program with a curriculum for the teachers to follow too. We have family support groups, which we do every other Sunday. And our new thing since the last time I was here is we started offering family to family, which is an 8-week course for family members, and it's an education program. And it goes through many different aspects of mental health and for family members and friends. And then in our own voice, where you share your own lived experience, which I do quite a bit. Sharing your story with law enforcement is just what it is. And then the peer support group, which we've been doing since the very beginning, all the way back to 2014. And then peer-to-peer is the the peer side of the family side. So we have the 8-week family program, and then the peer-to-peer is the 8-week peer program. And it goes like through how to work with your providers, how to advocate for yourself, how to like go through basic diagnoses and medications and things like that, overviews. New since the last time I was here is Hearts and Minds. It's a new program from NAMI National. It's a signature program. It's a 5-week wellness program. It's for both peers and family members and friends. And we're starting to offer that, and it's a little less structured because you can actually incorporate a few things of your own in the program. So if you come up with something really good, you can share it with the state office and then they can review it and then you can put it in. CIT training, crisis intervention team training, is the 40-hour law enforcement training. Our next one's in October and it's going to be in Iron River, Wisconsin. So we do that as well. And then hearing voices, we always incorporate it into our CIT training. We feel it's really important to give insight and create empathy for those that live with like psychosis or schizophrenia. We always do that every single time. We do our Superior Annual Mental Health Awareness Night. We just had it. Actually, we did it on Thursday this year instead of the first Tuesday of the month. Because that we thought it would be better to do it earlier and connect it with another event. And so we did it last Thursday. And then mental health first aid, we always offer free classes for mental health first aid. I think we have like 4 of them this May. And then our biggest thing is the Peer Respite House. So that's what we're working on opening right now. And last time I was here, we received the grant, we were awarded the grant funds, but we had not received them yet from the city of Superior. So what's actually happened since I was here a year ago is we actually received those grant funds and we actually got the house and we got the keys from Faith United Methodist Church, which is Harbor House is a member of Faith United Methodist Church. So the reason we chose that property is because it's on a bus route, so it's accessible. It's in walking distance of a store, and it's already zoned properly as transitional living. So there was many reasons why we worked with the church to get that property. Then we started having volunteers dispose. They basically just gave it to us. They took out a few things and gave it to us and left it full of stuff. So we disposed of all the unwanted property and cleaned it out and have been painting, which has costed us $900 so far, because the person who was running it for them was an art student and painted giant mandalas on the walls and had a green wall next to a purple wall. And I found it very overstimulating myself. And then we worked with an autism expert and they said their son sees all words in different colors, except for he doesn't see gray and like vanilla and white. So they said anything is overstimulating if there's any color. So we made it all vanilla, except for the sensory friendly rooms are really, really, really light gray. And then the upstairs bedrooms are in color because those are non-ADA and non-sensory friendly. So we're working on creating a ADA sensory friendly bedroom and bathroom. And that's what our biggest delay is right now, is working with the city for that. And then, so since we got the property, we've been cleaning it up. And then True Coat's Flooring Systems donated and resurfaced the floor of the living room because it was concrete and it had like mold and it was bumpy and it was ugly. And then, December, we discovered the heat wasn't working. And that's when we had that sudden cold spell and we started winter for a little bit of winter. And then we knew the hot water heater wasn't working the whole time we were there. So we had them replace the boiler and the hot water heater. Then in January, we had the chimney capped off because it actually broke off and the rain was leaking into the roof. So we had it capped off appropriately and did that in January. Then we had a metal shed removed to create additional parking. And then we have the warm line installed. A warm line is a phone number that people can call and vent, like I broke up in a relationship, or my pet died, or I just need information or referrals or resources. So we had that installed, and then it's live, so people can call it. It goes, we have IP phones, so it goes to the phones and it tells us like where they're calling from, what city. And then it also goes to my cell phone if they don't answer it at the house. So that's the warm line. And then we took additional trips to the dump to clean more stuff out of the garage. And then I was officially hired as the executive director because I was working more hours for NAMI than I was for my real job. And then we decided to hire 10 staff members for the peer respite. And we told them all it'd be a very gradual onboarding. And one reason I wanted to do that is because when you start a new job, it's very overwhelming at first. And I didn't want to overwhelm them. I told them find summer jobs or something, or keep your current job. And we'll space these out every couple of weeks. We'll have like a day here, a day there until we open officially. So our goal is to open in the fall. And then, so May 1st through May 3rd was our longest training that we offered them. And it was managing psychosis, compassionate communications, and boundaries and ethics. And that's our only big chunk of training. The rest are all going to be like a day here and there. Because where we're at with the house itself is we're meeting with the city on Friday because Superior has like a new policy or code. If you do so much remodeling, it's supposed to be reviewed by the city now if you're in transitional housing. So we had an architect draw up the plans for our ADA accessible bathroom and to remove a structural bearing wall to put in a wheelchair lift, so it'd be all handicap accessible. And we have to have all that reviewed. So they're coming on Friday to review it. And then once they approve it, then we can actually have the contractor start that work. And then once they're done with that work, we can actually open it. So that's our plan, is hopefully by fall. So let's see. So Hope Haven, a little bit of why the need is for Hope Haven. It's estimated that there are 6,518 adults with mental illness in Douglas County. I think that's from a 2020 study that they did. They're all in our report to the city, and I should have put the year in there and I didn't. What the one that always floors me is the last one. They say it takes the police an average of 3 hours to admit someone to a medical facility, but only 37 minutes to admit somebody to jail. So that means you're never waiting for a bed to get to jail, but you're always waiting for a bed to get into the hospital. And that's why that's how it seems to go to be a go-to rather than a secondary option. And that's why our hospital, our jails and prisons are full of people with mental illness rather than funding them or funding our hospitals better. Let's see. So peer run respites are wellness and recovery focused. And in Wisconsin, they all have to be free of charge. That's the state statute. So therefore, they're all grant funded and donor funded. All the respites are in the state. And that makes it challenging at times to make sure you have enough funding to keep the doors open. You do not have to be a NAMI member to come. It's open to anyone. And they just call the warm line to get access to the beds. And it's supposed to be a version for jail and hospitalization because we know it can be very traumatizing for some people. And if you go to the hospital, you don't have access to pay your bills and you don't have a way to feed your pets and everything else. So the goal is to keep a living the same. and we turn it into a learning opportunity. Wisconsin has 6 peer respites. Oldest one's been around since 2013, and Wisconsin's considered a leader in the nation for peer-run respite. They're non-clinical alternatives. It's really designed to help those in marginalized communities as well, because we know that they have a lot of mental health concerns as well with trauma histories. It's really values of self-determination and belief that healing and growth are possible for all, and really demonstrate that hope that recovery is possible. And let's see, I'm going kind of fast, but I don't know what the time is. So they have to be able to choose this voluntarily. They can't be forced or court ordered into it in Wisconsin anyways. They want to be able to choose for the service for themselves, but they can call with like law enforcement, or they can call with their therapist and say, hey, is there a bed available? Do the intake, and then we'll call them back within 20 minutes and say, hey, we have a bed available. Can you come at 11 o'clock? It's for adults that are 18 and over, and there's no specific diagnosis or anything required. You're more than welcome to come if you feel like you're experiencing the challenge. And then we just ask for transportation to there, just because the staff can't necessarily leave to go help someone. It is, each get their own room. It's 4 bedrooms. They all lock just so people don't steal each other's belongings. And then there's lock boxes for their medications and valuables within each room as well. The typical stay is 1 to 7 days, with the average being 3.7 days. And they can come and go as they choose, or like to go to the store, to go take care of their pets, things like that. Already said they're all voluntary. Let's see. No, only true service animals are allowed, trained service animals, like for the blind, things like that. We don't allow emotional support animals. However, pets can visit. We do have a fenced-in yard, because we know pets and animals are very supportive to our mental health. So we feel it's important that they can visit as long as it's okay with other guests. So, and there's at least 1 staff member awake staff 24/7, usually 2 typically on days and evening. Answer the warm lines and stuff like that. Each peer respite's responsible for training their employees. And I've already been told my plan is above and beyond what some of the other respites do when they're onboarding other new staff, because I want to get as much done on the front end as I can. Let's see. So they have to have crisis de-escalation, cultural awareness, CPR, ECPR, trauma-informed care, and I'm having them do mental health first aid and a bunch of other ones, QPR. So, which is question, persuade, refer. So the process is to like call the warm line, do the intake, and then, which is a pretty lengthy form, but it's because there's a lot of spaces for staff to write notes. And then there is one barrier. We're within the school zone, so we can't take a sex offender, for example. So that is a barrier for some. But we take notes and stuff like that, and then the staff confers with another staff member. And then they decide whether or not that person would be an appropriate fit. And if they can't agree, then they go to another person. And then they decide to call that person back and give them a time on when to arrive. Because sometimes they may need to still like clean the sheets and everything else for that bedroom. So therefore they may push them out like a couple hours. And then some of the extra things we plan to have is art, music, computer. We have a donated laptop from NAMI, Wisconsin. We plan to have movies and cooking and all that stuff. We have a lot of books. The Superior High School is doing a book drive for us right now, which is just awesome. So we'll have plenty of books after the book drive is done, I'm sure. These are photos of the other respite houses in Wisconsin. This top one is Iris Place, and these lower ones are from Iris Place as well. And then this is from Lighthouse in La Crosse. And this is our respite house. And there's another level below it, which you can't see, below ground. And that's where the staff offices are. They get to be in the basement. Let's see, this is our mission statement. Provide hope, and provide a safe environment where everyone's treated with dignity, respect as they receive services, supports from those with lived experience. And then we'll be a leader in peer support by providing hope and recovery services in northwestern Wisconsin in a safe home-like environment. And everyone there, including myself, has to be a person with lived experience to work there. And then our values, of course, start with hope, because that's part of the name. We feel hope is the most important thing for Hope Haven. If without hope, it's hard to make any progress, really, because we know that's essential, because a lot of people don't have hope when they come into situations like this. And then connection, kindness, support, well-being, or wellness, and then belonging and community. Because we know that isolation, the US Surgeon General said for like youth, isolation is equivalent to smoking 17 cigarettes a day. So it's really important that people have that connection and sense of belonging rather than isolating. That's why we put that one on there. And then funding, well, in Wisconsin, all of them are funded by the state. And they requested from the governor's office to fund 2 more. And they put northern Wisconsin, which would be us, and then they put Manitowoc County, because there's none along the eastern shores of Wisconsin. And the GFO, there's 2 GFO cycles in Wisconsin, which makes it confusing, because when I asked them, when's our GFO cycle? At first they thought it was 2025, but they said, oh no, those are the ARPA funded ones. You're not ARPA funded. Yours would be 2026. So we wouldn't be eligible until 2020, the start of 2026, January 2026. So we have applied for a different grant for $250,000 to fund us for this next year. And then unsolicited donations, a capital campaign, and additional fundraising. And then there are 4 other grants that we're working with grantors as well. So it takes quite a bit to keep a 24/7 operation going. And then, whoops, wrong way. So that's a little bit about it. And then the warm line is open to anyone in the region can call that for, especially if you're calling for someone in Wisconsin. We can tell you, like Lake Superior Community Health has it 177 people on their waiting list. They just told us last week. So and then like Creative Counseling, his waiting list is almost a year. So we've been telling people to call this 665 HOPE number, and then we can give them referrals and information and resources, or just give them information about Hope Haven until it opens. So that information is all live if anyone needs to reach out. I don't know what the time is. How are we? Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of the end of it, because I was rushing because I couldn't see the clock. So that's okay. Yeah, I'm open for questions.
Okay. Can you give a round of applause for All right, does anyone have questions?
I do have to say, this started as a dream of mine back in 2017. So it's been a long journey to get to this point, considering we are doing this outside of support of county and was outside of support of the state. So we had to put a committee together to actually create all the supports and policies and procedures and everything else to get to this point. And it took like 30 community partners to make that happen, so. And I see we have something in the chat.
I'll ask a question. This is Meredith. First, congratulations on your new position as executive director. That's very, very exciting. And I think you may have already said it before, like I understand now how people will call in and get checked in and those kinds of things, but how are people hearing about you in the first place? I mean, the Hope, the center.
Yeah, well, some of it is, we've had a lot of media coverage actually. And some of it is through our grantors, the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation did a little video blurb, and then they did, photos, and they're putting it in their annual report. And so it's coming out in different pieces, different chunks at a time. It was on the front page of the Superior Telegram too. And so, and it was on the different media outlets because Essential Health pushed it out there because they funded the warm line. So that's out there. And then, let's see. So, and then we do have a website, and then we had, two community connect events, and we gave out free swag, like backpacks with stuff, and then we gave out stuff for the homeless people. Like they have water bottles, reusable silverware kits, things like that, and stuff that you would need if you were living on the street, and socks and different things like that. But everything had Hope Haven on it and our website and phone number on it. And then for all of our community partners, which is like 30 something people, we have business cards and magnets to give to each organization to hand out to their people. And it's in the NAMI Wisconsin resource guide, and they send out like 1,600 of them or something like that each year. And then each affiliate gives them out too. And then they have a little QR code, and they said their website was accessed like 6,000 times last year. So it goes out a lot.
So I wonder if you're in nice places to house people, but didn't seem like very many. Are you meeting demand? So,
Well, we're not open yet, but all the peer respites run pretty full because there is limited beds in each one. The state limits you to 7 beds. Yeah. Due to staffing, I think is the number one reason, because they only keep one staff member on at night. So I think that might be the reason they do it, and they want it to be a home-like environment and not feel institutionalized. So I think that's why they limit it to 7 beds.
I think we all know people that have some form of mental illness or addiction or whatever. And one of the big problems a lot of us have is how do you turn to an organization like yours? How do you intervene and say with a family member that you're not an immediate member of the family? Questions like that.
Yeah, when I have to work with someone, I always like to say something like, I've noticed symptoms, like if I'm working with someone, and start with I noticed because it's less confrontational. And then say, I've noticed that you haven't been sleeping well and you're just not like seeming like your normal self or as funky as you used to be or whatever. And then ask them what they need. Like, do you need help? Do you need support? Do you need services? And then I know of a place like Hope Haven, or I know of some support groups.
Most of the time, these people would probably know.
Okay.
They really need help.
Yeah, that is always a challenge, because sometimes it's just constantly going back to them and reassuring them that you'll be there for them. Because at some point, if you do that and keep doing that, at some point they'll know you'll be there and they'll be willing to reach out usually. it's not always the best thing. You know, they're delaying their own care, which delays their path to recovery. But, you know, sometimes you can't force them.
I apologize if you already covered this, or the whole choir showed up late because we had to practice.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, that's good. You want us to practice, trust me. But, so I'm assuming you have to be a Wisconsin resident to access Hope Haven Peer Respite, the place, no?
Well, right now we're not open,
Right?
but, that'll be the case once we're state funded, because the state demands that.
And is there anything like this in Duluth?
Well, they have virtual, but it's not peer run. So, and actually Minnesota has no true peer run respites, but they're working on it, I heard. There's been discussions. But I don't, Minnesota seems to be a little less on the peer recovery side than Wisconsin is. So, but they do have peer specialists in Wisconsin, or in Minnesota, I mean, HDC, Nystrom. Other questions?
I was thinking of,
How successful will it be when you get someone in? How long will it take for them to get better? And do they get better? And what happens if they don't?
Yeah, well, I know that they've been collecting data on the other 6 peer respites in Wisconsin. And it may seem to some people like they're not improving, but they actually documented that that they say they don't use crisis services. I think it's somewhere in my, maybe somewhere in there. It's like 73% reduction in crisis services within the first 3 months. So it definitely has an impact. But, and then they follow up every 3 months, 6 months, 12 months out. And so they do see trends and reductions of crisis services, emergency services, law enforcement involvement, things like that. So it does have its benefit. And we asked them what would have happened if you didn't come to the respite. And Iris Place alone last year had 18 people that said they would have killed themselves. So it does have an impact. And that was when we visited them and it was only halfway through the year. So, it sometimes we don't know the answer either because, you know, they don't tell us or whatever. But, and then if they don't get better, I don't know if there is an answer for that because usually most of them have pretty positive effects unless they're asked to leave because they were out, whatever, using a substance and then they were disobeying the rules when they came back. And so sometimes they're just told to go sleep it off and then they're fine and we have a conversation with them. But then sometimes if they don't follow through with that, then they're asked to leave and then they're a little persnickety afterwards. To put it nicely. Let's see. Oh, someone asked me to repeat the questions from the floor. Sorry, I just read that now. So they asked, I forgot what you asked, everything about how basically the outcomes and if they're not effective and if they are effective along that lines. Sorry, I'll try to do a better job with that. Other questions?
I don't know that, having questions because you answered so many of them as we went along and as people asked them, but I just want to say again, I was so impressed with your work last year and you have just increased it amazingly this year. I'm excited that you're executive director. And as far as 4 beds go, that's at first sort of shocking. And like a drop in the bucket or 1 starfish on the ocean or whatever all those analogies are. But if they only see an average of 4 days, I think you said, or even less.
3.7.
That really works out to be a lot over time. And I think the peer-to-peer aspect of it has incredible potential. I remember when my son first got sick, he was recommended to a support group in Duluth.
And he did not want to go. He had no interest in, I'm sure it was denial, identifying himself with those people that he didn't know and he didn't understand. But it's something like this where that's just a part of the treatment, if you can call it, services, is just wonderful. So thank you for all the work. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And sometimes 4 does feel like a drop in a bucket, but then when, like you're saying, the volume that can come through is pretty high.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. We taking referrals from area emergency rooms, inpatient behavioral health hospitalization stays, and 3 to 4, possibly 7 days. That does seem like a short time, I'm sure. So then does your team work on referrals then to other outpatient services for ongoing follow-up?
Yeah, so as far as taking referrals, we've already met with the social workers at Essentia. And they kind of got the laydown of how the program works and everything. But what they can do is they can call with the person, because the person has to call, it's required that the person has to be on the phone. Because we ask questions specifically of them and like what they hope to get out of it. And do they understand that they have to work on a recovery tool while they're there? That's part of the requirement of the program. And they can make that referral with that patient, and then that person can call, and then we'll call them back within 20 minutes after the staff confers, and then say, yes, we'll have a bed available at such and such time, or no, we won't have a bed available till the next day or something. And it can be used as a step down from inpatient as well. And we did discuss that with the county too, because they asked us about that for some of their longer term stays. And they were hoping to use it as a transition necessarily, or a step down from group homes. So.
Any more questions in the room or? Let's thank Chrissy so much for this amazing presentation. Okay. Truly life-saving, and what a beautiful model. I just really thank you for presenting it here today. Let's give a round of applause too for Josh for running the mic today. And the whole forum committee, Tom for working the sound and everything, and Sally and Will for being here, and on and on and on. So thank you. So my job is to say that next week, typically we wouldn't have a session on Mother's Day, but there is going to be a budget hearing, which we must do as a congregation.